Hello again. This is the Answer Lady. Today's project is a make-it-yourself knitting tool for Kiss looms. We'll make a knit stitch tool on one end and a purl stitch tool on the other end.
Here are some really great loom tools. These are made by Kiss, and you can order them from the website. This one is the knit tool, and this one is the purl tool, and I just love them. However, you know me, I can never leave anything the way it is. I want more tools and better tools. And a while back, a friend who also knits on looms suggested, wouldn't it be great if we had a two-ended tool so that when you're knitting and purling, you could just flip it end to end. Obviously, you could duct tape these two together, but you'd have sort of a monster. So I came up with an idea. Jack's going to help me. This is a perfectly good, inexpensive knitting tool from the regular craft supply store. This one's pulling out, which is why it's going to become a specimen. Its handle wasn't perfectly seated, but I like the shape of the hook, so we're going to use it. And I puzzled and puzzled over what to use for a purling hook. The last time Jack made me a special one, he dismantled an old pair of eyeglass frames, and it has worked beautifully. It's held up wonderfully. But you don't always have those around, plus they're hard to work with. And my friend Monique said she uses paper clips for purling tools. And I thought that can't be right because I tried it, and my paper clips collapsed. Then I realized maybe Monique bought the good paper clips, so I bought some. And I have undone one partly and formed it into a reasonable purling hook shape, and we're going to work with that. All right, we're ready to go. Jack has trimmed me a nice piece of bamboo. It is 4 inches long. We already tried it with a longer one, and that wasn't suitable because the other end of the tool would get stuck in my sleeve. We have also prepared the hooks. This is the one that came from a commercially bought loom hook, and we took the handle off. And this is a fancy paper clip now. This is going to be the purling end. Okie dokie.
All right, now we're going to prepare our two-part epoxy. There's a number of products available. This one I find in a plumbing department, and it is basically cut off a piece, and you will see there is the dark epoxy in the middle and this white hardener around the outside.
And you just knead those two things together till they're perfectly smooth.
Yeah, you'll be able to see it marble as you push the two different colors together.
It also heats up.
Yep, heats up. Also gets sticky, 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 but that's what we want.
Yeah, we have not found it bothered our skin, but people with sensitive skin might want to wear those thin plastic gloves.
Right, and all right, here we go. We're going to divide it in half. Make our little worms. That worm got too wormy.
The tricky part of this for me, and the reason I have Jack help me, is that anybody can understand what we're trying to do is shove that epoxy into the tube, shove the tool handle in and center it, and pack down the epoxy so that it hardens. And actually I said tool handle, but I really meant useful tool end. We want the epoxy packed down and hardened around it so the tool working portion is very, very secure. It's a little tougher than it sounds to get that epoxy in there so that every tiny little space is filled up and your handle can't move. And that's where I find Jack is a bunch better at it than I am.
And you see the technique we're using. I have a tool, just a aluminum rod that'll push down in there and continue to pack the epoxy in. Now what I need to do is stop and insert the handle of the working portion. We pre-folded this so that it fit all the way bottomed out to be the height that Catherine wanted. Now you see that there's an opening in the end, and what I'll do is continue to pack it in by pushing it with my finger and not giving it any place else to go. but inside the tube.
Did it go all the way in as we planned?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
And another tricky thing to do is try to keep the tool centered
Yes.
on the material. Now, the bamboo is a little harder, but if you went and got a piece of plumbing pipe the right size for what you wanted, then it would be circular, and this is not. This is an odd shape.
While Jack continues to work that in, I'll show you how we figured out how long the paperclip hook had to be. It needs to be at least as long as my pins and pegs, plus a little bit, for two reasons. I'm going to bend it eventually to give me better access to inserting the tool hook into the stitches, so bending will take up a little distance. And we need to be able to get to the bottom of the stitch when we insert the tool. First try, I didn't think about that and made a beautiful looking hook that doesn't work very well. So
this is where you have to position this while it'll rotate in there to what's an easy grip for you, and I think that's going to be like that.
That's true. This is how it falls on my hand, with that slight bend over my third finger. And originally we imagined that the tool should point straight from that point, but it turns out that's not how I approach the loom. When I go to knitting with it, I'll point it out to you. There's an ideal angle that I'll try to think of a better way to describe as we go along.
All right, now let me point out the cleanup. If you'll notice, I have this all over my hand. And as we've said, if your hands are sensitive, it might bother them. And I use a treated cleanup towel. They come in tubs and buckets. But if you'll notice, it's for cleaning grime off. And even though it started to harden on my fingers, I can get it off onto the towel. It's also good for cleaning whatever tool you might have used. And these towels come in different names. You can find them, again, at automotive stores. You just tell them you want clean-up towels in a tub or a bucket. But see, now my hands are clean. It also lets me work with the epoxy again without it sticking, because I had some on my hands. And then it lets me clean up the edge of the tool also to make it pretty.
Can we get a little bit more of a dome on here, do you think?
We'll have to get another piece to do that. Because
we'll try it like this.
Okay. Yeah, that's the thing, is that's more what you wanted.
Yeah, a little rise at the end that encloses the tool shaft.
But remember, you can always go back and add a little bit to it.
Yes.
But it starts to harden pretty quickly.
We always save a little piece out. This is still a little bit flexible, but once it has hardened, it'll sound like a bead, a wooden bead, when you drop it on the hard surface, and it won't be possible to squeeze anymore. Right now I can still squeeze it. Then
Right.
You know that your tool can be used.
So there we have the tool with its ends inserted, and we'll just have to wait, like she said, until that hardens. Get yourself a good-sized test piece like this and set it to one side so that you know when this is hard, which it isn't yet, then it's safe to use your tool.
I'll be back when it's ready. Ready to knit. Got my tool in my hand. We're going to alternate knitting and purling here. Let me get a hold of my yarn. All right, wrap a stitch, knitting in, knit it over. No problem, that works fine, but then that normally works fine. Those tools are easy. Sorry, I had to be slow. I'm working around the camera here. There's the purl. Yay. Let's knit again. Flip the tool over to use the knitting in. Flip to do the purl in. See, I've got it bent to a way that's convenient for me. In case you haven't purled much, we stick the purling tool down in the old stitch, reach around to find the new yarn, which is underneath. I've wrapped it to underneath. Pull it through the old stitch, lift the old stitch off, place it back on the peg. We're not going to do a whole purl purling video here because I've got several others. I'm using the small gauge loom, and purling's a little bit more complicated, at least to see. It's not truly harder to do on the small gauge loom. That was a purl. We're ready to knit. Of course, with the regular gauge kiss, your pegs are facing you, so the openings are out, and you get to watch the tool go down in the stitch more closely. But this works fine. You just have to figure out exactly where you're putting it. Flip the tool again. Yeah, I could learn to love this thing. It's working great. And Monique was right. A decent paper clip will make a perfectly good tool hook, purl hook. And one more. There we go. So have fun. Make yourself one.